All right, let's get right into it. We're going to talk about a company that's tackling one of the world's biggest and kind of hidden problems. And that is the dirty, very expensive secret of industrial wastewater.
Just look at this number for a second. $280 billion. That's how much companies around the world spend every single year. Not on making a new product, not on R&D, but just on getting rid of their dirty water. It's an absolutely massive drain on the global economy.
And yeah, that brings us to this question. Because the answer is that constant, toxic flow of water coming out of our factories, our mines, our oil fields. For decades, the way we've dealt with it has been expensive, super inefficient, and a lot of the time, we're just moving the problem from one spot to another.
So how in the world do we get to a $280 billion problem? To really get that, you have to look at the old ways of doing things and why they just aren't cutting it anymore. For years and years, companies have been stuck with, well, a few pretty bad options. You could pump the waste deep underground, which, comes with its own environmental risks. Or you could let it sit in these huge evaporation ponds that take up tons of land. Or you can literally just truck it, sometimes hundreds of miles away. Every single one of these is a huge drain on time, money, and resources.
But what if there was a totally different way to think about this? Let's check out how this one Colorado-based company, IX Water, is trying to flip the script with a radically different approach.
And this, right here, really lays out the core idea. Instead of these giant, centralized concrete plants, think smaller, modular machines that can work right there at the source. Suddenly, no more trucking costs. Instead of needing a whole team of technicians for some complex chemical process, they're aiming for a system so simple, a single person can run it. The whole goal is to turn water from being just a cost into something you can actually use again.
Now here's the big claim. The company says its patented tech, which, by the way, originally came out of Los Alamos National Labs, can remove 99.8% of contaminants. We're talking heavy metals, hydrocarbons, salts, you name it. Pulling all of that out of industrial water, that would be a serious game changer.
So this really brings us to the heart of the debate around this company. On one side, you've got the incredible promise of a revolutionary technology, but on the other, you have the peril of some very real-world business challenges. It's a classic high-stakes story, massive potential versus some pretty significant risk.
So first, let's dig into the optimistic view. This is the bull case. The argument that IX Water is in exactly the right place, at exactly the right time, with exactly the right solution.
What's really fueling this opportunity is a perfect storm of global trends all hitting at once. Governments are cracking down with way stricter regulations. Water scarcity is making every single drop of water more and more valuable. And of course, investors are putting huge pressure on companies to improve their environmental footprint, their ESG score. It's all creating this massive surge in demand for exactly this kind of technology.
And at its core, this is really the company's entire value proposition. See, they're not just selling a piece of machinery. They're selling their customers a way to turn a really costly headache, a big red line in the expense column, into a potential competitive advantage.
And backing up this vision is a leadership team that seems to have some serious experience. The CEO has founded 9 tech startups, and the CFO has a background focused specifically on getting technologies out of national labs like Los Alamos and into the real world. This suggests they know just how hard it is to take an idea from the lab and get it onto the factory floor.
Okay, but for every promise, there's a peril, right? So now we have to flip the coin and look at the very serious obstacles that a company like IX Water has to navigate.
And this chart really visualizes the #1 concern for any skeptic. The company has raised over $5 million, which is awesome. But in 2023, it only brought in about $100,000 in revenue and, reportedly, 0 revenue in 2024. That is a huge gap between the money coming in and the money going out. This revenue gap leads to a situation called financial fragility. Basically, it means you're walking a tightrope. According to their own filings, in early 2025, IX Water had only about 1 month of cash reserves left in the bank. That creates an immense amount of pressure and leaves absolutely 0 room for error.
So this all boils down to a set of very real challenges. You got the low revenue, sure, but their early focus is also on the U.S. shale oil industry, which can be incredibly volatile. Then you got huge, established competitors who could wake up one day and decide to compete, and maybe most importantly, there's a massive execution risk. Can they actually scale up manufacturing reliably? Because having a great technology is really only half the battle.
So, if we put all of this together, what does the story of IX Water really tell us about the bigger picture of trying to solve our planet's environmental problems?
It's really the perfect case study. It just goes to show you how incredibly difficult it is to turn a brilliant, world-changing idea into a business that can actually survive and make a real-world impact. That road from a lab prototype to industrial scale is super long and, frankly, filled with risk.
And that kind of leaves us with this final question. The success or the failure of ventures just like IX Water, well, that's going to help determine how we solve some of our planet's most pressing resource challenges. Are they on the verge of a real breakthrough? Or is the gap between that amazing technological promise and the harsh reality of business just too wide to cross? I guess only time will tell.